right, guys. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today is going to be another school update video, but it's not exactly how my other videos have been. This is going to be a little bit different. So stay tuned because it's going to be interesting. But first, I kind of want to say, I'm so glad that I took a self-care day, and technically, yes, today is another one of my self-care days, but you know what? I figure I have the time and I feel rested, so why not make another video? Yay! I'm just playing with y'all. Anyways, so this video is going to be going into the continuation of the issues with my school, and this video is going to be a little bit kind of like just summarizing everything because I really have thought about it, and you know, the more I talk about this, the more like depressed it makes me. So I figured that if I kind of like get this whole saga out, then, you know, I can just kind of move on with my videos being how they used to be. And, you know, if people have questions about issues that they might be having with their school, or they need, you know, some type of advice, feel free to always leave a comment down below. And I'll try and do my best to respond back to your comments. I don't always see them for some weird reason, the notifications, I don't know what's up, but you know, if you leave a comment, I will try and make sure that I go through the video and make sure I respond, or typically what I usually will do is I'll add a response within the next video. So without further ado, let's get into it. So in the last video that was talking about my school, I was going into what the SAC hearing was and kind of started going through what were some of the bogus complaints that were being launched against me. And I started reading what my SAC referral response was, which was an 11-page document, not spaced, with 35 artifacts that I had attached, which AKA we would just call receipts. So I know that a lot of people might watch these videos and might be like, oh, that's her experience, that's not mine, I don't like it, I don't like how her videos are going. Like, it's his life. These videos are not made to like make you feel warm and fuzzy, because they damn sure didn't make me feel warm and fuzzy. But they're also to be informative. There's supposed to be videos that are, yes, there's supposed to be videos that are going to go into people's characters, and that, guess what, there are people that are sitting in schools right now that are not, that care nothing about the students, like nothing about the students at all. And some of you guys might passively know that. People to open their eyes and understand that just because you're in the field or wanting to go into the field of therapy, that does not mean that people in the therapeutic field are going to be maybe as wholesome, sweet, and caring and empathetic as you are. If anything else comes from this video, the series of videos that I made, I really want them to be eye openers, because my eyes were like basically shut and I was completely blindsided. I think the stuff that happened to me in this graduate program, I think I would have more so expected it to be something that happened in my undergrad, because my undergrad was in business and economics and marketing. And you know, when you think of the business world, you think of like cutthroat, passive aggressive emails, per my last email, or per da 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 da, you know what I mean? And you know, that's kind of the world that I live in my everyday job that I've been in for years, like in my career that I've been in for years. So it's just not therapy. And so, you know, I really would have thought if any of this was going to happen, that it would have been in the business realm, just based off of the fact that like you expect people to just create more drama in the business world, because that's what happens. So I know that's what's kind of like fucking with my mind. But with that being said, I think it's really important that people understand that, you know, my story's not your story, but it could be. So, you know, the last video about my school, I went into what were the issues with my school and how did that affect me. Well, basically, to summarize it all up, my site supervisor who I thought like had my back, and you know, to my face she was all like, you're the best therapist, like we're gonna help you get a job here, we're gonna put you with a client in the community, which she had said that she had talked to my school and had read our contract and said it was fine. And when I had brought it up to my internship one professor, he's like 70s tie-dye type guy, like he really just don't give a fuck. He was like, oh yeah, that's great, okay, anybody else want to share? Like it was so passive that why would I think anything was wrong with going into a community, which wasn't even this person's home. Like literally she lived in a adult facility like for people that are disabled, and we would always meet either in their conference room, or they had like it's a media center, but it's kind of like more books than like media, I don't know. But anyways, I was never in her home because first of all, she like, I ain't about that because but also she made sure that we had accommodations, you know, to not be in her home. So, you know, and that was a really great experience. I absolutely loved it. I wouldn't take anything away from the experiences that I had with my clients, like not one thing. And I can't wait to get back into videos like really talking about that experience, because unfortunately these events have greatly overshadowed the initial reason why I created this channel. But 'tis life, it doesn't always go as planned, right? Never did I think I'd be making videos like this, but you know, so this site supervisor really made me believe that she cared for me, that I was a person that, you know, she had my back, and she trash talked the hell out of my school, which I was just kind of like, whatever. Like, I'm the type of person, and most people that know me in real life knows that, like, for some reason, I tend to be the person that everybody, like, runs to and is like, da, 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 da. I think it's because I'm one of those people that I just kind of sit back. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I don't really always put my opinion on something unless it's, like, something that has impacted me directly. I try not to get in the mix of the drama, only because, like, when you do that, you tend to be the person that gets blamed in the end. So, like, I've learned way, way earlier in life, just don't get into it. So I think that my site supervisor, no, not that I think, okay, let me back up. I found out that my site supervisor basically is a closet racist, y'all. Like, I'm telling you, and this isn't even just me being a woman of color and feeling like this, like, legit, I found out stuff that even to this day I'm trying to wrap my mind around. Like I'm like in shock about some of this stuff. Like there were other interns and other therapists that were women of color that worked under this site supervisor that she did extremely nasty discriminatory things to, that they ended up either leaving the profession completely or quitting and going to a whole nother like a whole nother center or opening their own practice, because she is one of those type of people. She's the worst kind of racist. You don't even understand. Like, she's the one that will smile in your face, right? And you'll think like, oh wow, like you should never like 100% trust nobody, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you're gonna sit here and you're gonna be nice, and you're gonna make it seem like you're all for the cause, all for the people, like you like are a part of the LGBTQ community. And you know, you talk about how representation is so important. Like on my interview with her, she asked me what was my passion, and I said my passion was making sure that women of color are heard in the mental health field, because it is such a taboo thing in my community, that if I can impact the community and infiltrate it in any way to make sure that as a woman of color that my voice is being amplified, so other voices that come after me can have a voice and a place to stand in this field and help our community, that's what I want to do. And she was all like, oh my God, that's so amazing. Like, you know, I've never had an intern like that's super passionate about this. Now, granted, you know, people like to say, especially it's like the honeymoon phase, you know what I'm saying? Like when you initially start talking to somebody, we'll say it's a relationship, right? You start talking to somebody and then everything's like amazing, sweet, like roses, but really they smell like boo-boo, you know? And everything seemed great. I had no reason all the way up until basically I had left the site because I was done with my hours, and I had found out that she had created all these lies, said that I was up and down the hallways yelling and screaming, and I'm like, what? And that I was always going to other therapists asking for like help with emotional issues dealing with my school, and I'm like, huh? Like, I was so confused. Like, everything that she tried to tell my school were things that are the stereotypical things that you would assign to Black women. And it was just like, there's the shit that she was saying. I'm like, Okay, so first of all, half of the time when I was at my site, I was back to back with clients. I'm not a loud person by nature at all. Like even when I asked the people that I've worked with for like over 3+ years, you start questioning yourself. You're like, okay, I mean, like sometimes my ears get clogged, but I'll be screaming and yelling. So I was like asking people at my day job, like, when all the shit hit the fan, I was like, okay, so do y'all like these are the things that she said to school. Now, mind you, she never once said anything to my face. Never, nothing. Like the day that I left, this stupid idiot gave me a hug and was like, I wish you all the best. If you need a recommendation, I would be more than happy to give it. Like, I just feel so bad that your school is treating you so horrible. Like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. Like, please just take care of yourself. All this bullshit. And meanwhile, she over here spreading lies, talking about, oh, she's screaming through the hall. I'm like, I've never in my life screamed through a hallway at any job I've ever been at. In my internship, I treated it just like a job. And I'm like, half of the time, the other therapists would be like, oh my God, you're so quiet. We didn't even know you were here. Because most of the time I was back to back with my clients, or I was they had so many trainings that I had to do on the computer. Half of the time I was either on the computer doing the trainings, or I was doing my case notes, or I was with the client, or I was in her office for supervision or asking her questions about certain cases that I had to work with clients to get some better insight on how I can better aid in helping my clients. To hear that that's the negative connotation that she relayed to my school. Now, mind you, if that was really the issue, I was there for like 7-8 months, and this is the thing, you have to do reviews throughout every so many weeks of the student, and the student has to do reviews of the site and how they feel like they're interacting with their site supervisor. And I mean, like, my reviews from her were always glowing, even the ones that she submitted to the school. Like, there was never an issue. I'm telling you, never an issue. So to hear this, I know you guys are probably like, well, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody do that? Y'all, I spent months asking myself that, and only a few conclusions could come. First of all, she's racist. Second of all, she's delusional. Third of all, if I had to diagnose her, I would say she has personality disorder. Look it up. She has all of the symptoms. So the thing of it is when I was talking to another therapist that is also a Black woman that has been in this industry, oh my God, I'm going to say for like 15-20 years, like she definitely, I would say in that office, I felt most safe with talking with her, and not because she was an African-American woman, which yes, that was a part of it, because there were other African-American women therapists. I mean, there was 2 more out of like, I don't know how many I've seen at that company, a lot. And we're not giving accolades for small tokenisms. So she started telling me, this other therapist, about how there was another young therapist that was very similar to me, very quiet, kept to herself, did what she's supposed to do, asked questions when she needed to gain understanding, followed protocol. She was like, Camille, she didn't do anything either. And she's like, this same site supervisor came after her the same way. She's like, she had one day out of nowhere had, put all this crazy stuff on this other therapist's review. Basically what it comes down to is if she feels like you're not going to bend and mold to be her, like, because there's about 4 other younger white therapists that are brand new to the field. One's a social worker and the other 3 are therapists, clinical mental health. And it's like they have definitely just taken on her personality. But I have my own personality. I'm in my 30s. I'm not like in my early to mid 20s. Like, I have an established personality. This site supervisor's in her 40s, but the woman that was telling me, this other Black therapist, she was like, it's not you. And she's like, it's not you. If she feels like you're not going to be a part of her clique, then she takes issues and she creates lies. She's like, she has so many complaints against her in HR, which I was like, girl, what? Was like, yeah. And she's like, and all the complaints are from people of color that were either current therapists that have moved site centers because of her, or that were, working at the center that I was at previous to when I was there, and just totally like jumped ship completely. They no longer even associate with that company. And so I was like, well, why hasn't HR done anything? She's like, oh, HR did. She's been on probation. What? I'm like, mind you, I'm literally at the end of my internship, and I'm like, what do you mean she's on probation? She's like, yeah, she's on probation. I'm like, girl, why didn't you tell me this from the get-go? I was over here thinking this woman was like my friend and everything. She was like, yeah. She's like, I kind of tried to tell you, which I'm like, no, you didn't, but okay. She's like, I kind of tried to tell you when I kept saying, like, when you're not here, like, she only gives accolades to this other, like, intern. It was this white female that's like in her early 20s intern. She's like, she only speaks highly of her and she acts like you don't even exist. Like, she when they're in meetings, she's like, she doesn't even bring you up. Like, it's always like, praise this young intern that's the white intern. And she's like, and then this particular therapist says that she was one of the few therapists that always be like, hey, what about Camille? Like, she's an intern too. Like, she's bringing in, you know, clients, and clients love her. Clients are wanting to come back. You know, like, never had a complaint from a client. I never had a client that wanted to switch therapists, which I tended to get a lot of therapists, clients that didn't want them anymore. So if I was such a bad therapist or as unprofessional, I would think that that would actually like reflect in my ability to be a therapist and my ability to work with other therapists in the office. So it just, her whole theme or her whole like creation of me did not add up at all to what was really happening. And because my school didn't do proper vetting with this person to find out that she is on probation, like the CEO, which is a female, the CEO of the center came to the center I was at. So this particular facility, like this company has, I think, like 5 or 6 centers, and they're really huge in the area. And so she had came from their like main corporate office to this center, which, I mean, it's not like a huge drive, but like we going from one city to another city. And if y'all know Florida traffic or Florida driving, like, it's crazy dangerous. So if the CEO, like, we're not talking about her manager, we're not talking about the senior manager, we're not talking about a like VP or anything, we're talking about the CEO. The CEO came to that office, and this is from people telling me this. So, and it's people that I know that really don't have a vested interest in trying to lie to me, because one, they've already now left the center, so they're not getting anything from it, and two, it's been a consistent story that I heard from 3 other therapists that have left because of her. So, and it was unsolicited that they provided that information to me at different times after they heard my story of what I was going through. So the CEO had came and actually had put her on probation because apparently the reviews that were coming back as exit interviews that people were doing with her being their supervisor were horrible. They were talking about how she is very microaggressive, backstabbing, lies, and how they don't feel safe in their working environment as a therapist. Like, that's a problem. So unfortunately, I did not know any of this when this got launched against me. I only later found it out when I was like out crying to other people that were like not only in my school, but also that were like at the facility. And then I was getting in touch with people that were like, hey, like, they still work there, and they're like, I'm going to give you this person's number, or we're going to have dinner or brunch or whatever, and like, we're all going to kind of talk about it, because they were so concerned for my well-being and my mental health, because they could see the wear and tear, like getting ripped out of your school when you have 1 week left. It's like somebody stabbing you. It's the worst feeling, because you feel helpless. You know what I'm saying? Like, you feel like, how in the world is this happening? Like, I'm a 4.0 student. I've never had any issues. Like, all my reviews, like the school has to do their own reviews because it's in the field of people, dealing with people, you know, human services, that like we would get evaluations throughout our entire 3.5 years. So I never had anything that said like, these are red flags. We need to pull her to the side. We need to put her on a plan, like nothing. So for my school to take everything she said as fact, it only comes back down to another racist professor co-signing on the negative stereotype associated with Black females. And that's that they're loud, they're arrogant, and they have attitudes, which is, if anybody met me, is the polar opposite of who I am as a person. Like, even when I was talking to people that I previously worked with in other jobs, and I was like, you know, just conversations, because most of the time I stay friends with most people that I've worked with, like, no matter what job, you know, like I have friends that I worked with when I was like 22 that I still talk to, that I'm about to do a business with. So like, I'm not that type of person that just is like loud, aggressive, angry. Like, I don't have to explain that. But when somebody's attacking your character, you feel like you have to defend it. Like, that's just a part of being a human. That's just a part of being a person that has feelings, you know? And so, you know, for the professor who I later found out, like, y'all, if you know how it's like two perfectly horrible things uniting at once to create like an explosion, that is what this was, and I couldn't even see it. So we already have the site supervisor's game down. She's just a blatant microaggressive, stab you in your back type racist that gets her 6 kicks and jollies because at the end of the day, her ultimate goal is to have a whole bunch of minions that look and act like her. Like, the only reason why I know that I got hired as an intern at that site, first of all, we did the phone interview, the first one over the phone, and she was like, I want to bring you in. And like, when she met me, like, she was like, oh my God, like, I love your personality. Like, you're so bubbly and you're so sweet. And she's like, I really love like what your passion is behind why you wanted to enter this field. Like, I cannot wait for us to work together. So like, I understand in the first like meeting of somebody, it's, you know, it could go one way or another, but typically I don't have people that interact with me that are like, oh my gosh, she's sour grapes. A lot of times I'm a pretty quiet person. So a lot of perception could be, you know, shy people or quiet people get like this perception that they're uppity or stuck up, but really we just are super talkative unless we get comfortable. Like, if I get comfortable with you, then I'm like, you can't shut me up, right? So I think that not only do we have the stereotype, the racial stereotype that's going on, but we also have the misperception of people that are quiet, that as a society, we've put like this stain on them to be like, oh, somebody's quiet, they must think they're better than us. And it's like, no, really, I'm just like minding my business. I'm exhausted trying to like, get my life together. Like, I'm burning the candle on both ends. So sorry, I don't have time to just like sit here and laugh and joke. And, you know, there were times when I would, but it definitely wasn't like my whole time being there, right? So we have the issue with the site supervisor, the university professor. That's my university, get my words together. Internship to university supervisor. Oh, I don't even know why that took me so long. But one of my friends told me while I was going through this, because she was there for me, like, oh my gosh, I used to call her all the time while I was going through this. She's like, girl, do you not know that I have filed a lawsuit against, or that I had hired an attorney to go after our internship to professor? And me, like, being this girl, we never really talked until internship too, but yet other professors and other students would be like, oh my God, you and this other girl, y'all need to like link up. Like, you guys have similar personalities. Like, I think you guys really like mesh. But our classes, because she was in one cohort and I was in another, like if you do online school, you know that it is usually based on cohorts. Now, I don't know if that's for everybody, but I've done undergrad, a part of it online, and then my graduate degree online. So that's always been the setup. And so it just was like the university, or the universe's divine intervention, that we linked up, me and this girl. And she was like, yeah, I'm the one that was like putting papers to get her removed because she's racist. And I was like, how does this happen? How in the world do I have a site supervisor that's a closet racist and a university professor that is a closet racist? Both women in their 40s, white, and belong to the LGBTQ community. I'm like, how, like, what is happening? What is happening? And she's like, I said, so explain this to me. What are you talking about? Because, you know, when people are racist towards you, even if it's a microaggressive thing, you can't always figure out why. And usually there isn't a real why. So what it came down to is that this woman had, when we had our residency, was showing preferential treatment to the white students and making snide, snarky remarks to the black students, to which created like a huge amount of students filing complaints, which I didn't even know, because one of the girls that I used to be friends with in the program told me about this professor, but since I had never had her, I didn't put 2 and 2 together when I had this professor in internship too. I didn't know this was that professor, okay? And so what it came down to is that she had filed paperwork with the school to do a formal complaint against this professor, like I had to do, and had hired an attorney to sue her because of the harassment and the racism, and that she didn't feel like the school was doing anything to help her. No shock there. And that the girl that I used to be friends with, I'm the one that had wrote up like this huge complaint for her to file, because like I don't know, I just feel like that's my little niche. Like, I'm really good at writing like really super nice, nasty emails, and also writing very professionally organized complaints. So like, I don't know, I always get wrapped into doing that for people, but I didn't know that this girl that's now in my internship too, that she was one of the students, because her and I never talked. It was just me and this other student. And so when we were like, oh, that was you? You were the other student? And she was like, wait a minute, you're the one that wrote the complaint? That girl never told me you're the one that wrote the complaint. And I'm like, oh my God, like the universe was like, I'm going to make this be full circle. For real, for real. And so what ended up happening is that she told me that the school had escalated it. She ended up dropping it because she said it was just so exhausting and that she was depleted of energy, and that the professor had sent her this internship 2 professor had sent her a letter from her attorney saying like, you're not going to sue me. We're just going to move forward, blah, blah, blah. So mind you, this internship 2 professor has been kissing this girl's ass just about the entire time. Not like completely kissing, but she damn sure wasn't showing signs that she was about to get like all lawyered up and like have issues in the court systems. And so I was asking her, I said, yeah, I heard about the racism, how she was making snide remarks, like when we did the walk of discomfort that goes into like stereotypes and stuff, that she was aiding in those stereotypes. Like she was agreeing with some of the stereotypes. So it's no surprise that you're going to sit here and have a site supervisor who is lying on me under the guise that I am doing all these stereotypical behaviors that are associated negatively with Black females. And then you have a professor who's had other students complain on her for her own blatant racism. She said that this girl, the student that complained on this professor, when she had complained on her, she had given her an F on a paper. She had to petition to have another professor go into and grade her huge paper, and it ended up being an A- paper. So how do you go from basically failing a paper from this racist professor to then having a second professor that's not a part of the class go in, regrade it, supposed to be unbiasedly, and it came back as an A-? It doesn't tell you that she's a racist and somebody that clearly is retaliating against a student that has made a complaint. I don't know what is. I don't know, because all I do know is that that type of behavior is what should have gotten her, that professor, kicked out of this school, but yet she's still sitting there. So yeah, that's an issue. And I'm like getting pissed off, even like rethinking about this. Yeah, let me just take like a little break, y'all. Cause I honestly, I get so irritated when I make these videos. I can feel my anger rising. So I'll be back. All right, guys, I'm back. I just had to get some water and refresh my lip gloss because I was getting so annoyed and mad that I just needed to take like a little breather in the middle of the video, which I don't think I've ever done, but I just felt very triggered in the moment. Anyways, what I was saying is basically that the site supervisor and the university professor are pretty much one and the same person. They both have a shitty personality and shouldn't be anywhere in the human field. Yeah. And so with those two people holding the fate of my degree in their hands, it was a perfect storm. So what ensued is the SAC referral, and I had to fight it. And this site supervisor, even all the way until Christmas, was still acting like she did nothing wrong and that she didn't lie. And she even put in the text, oh, I miss you, like, but it's so quiet on the hall now. And I would be like, this bitch. Because at first when I saw those texts, because at that point I even still didn't have the formal complaint from the school, they drug this out for months. Which is probably why it feels like these videos are dragging out. So I'm really over them more than some of you. Is that she was still acting like we were buddy and nice. And I was like, oh, I can't. And now, mind you, I didn't know that she was that snake in the grass. I was like, oh, I wish I could come back. Like, it would be so great. Still not even thinking that she had any parts to this whole thing. She had lied and said I had been fired from the internship site, which I emailed the director of HR for that company and asked them, do you show that I was terminated? And the woman was like, no, you left in good standing. You did all your paperwork. You closed out all your cases. You did everything you were supposed to do. You left in good standing. Like, good luck to you in your future endeavors. Does that sound like somebody that's been fired? Oh, but that's what this chick had said to my school. And instead of my school doing fact check, they went off of that. And that's what really rolled out this SAC referral, is under the guise that when I was being paid, no, I was not. Which also is another thing that was easily verified through HR. School didn't do any of that, and had said that I had been fired, which another thing that could have been easily verified through HR, which wasn't true either. So on her lies, that's what created it. It only kept going because this professor is racist. And apparently when I started talking to another professor that was helping me get this shit together, that apparently this is a common practice for this professor, but yet she's still employed. And you know why she's still employed? Because her butt buddies still work there. Let that sink in. So when you guys sit here and you think, oh, how could this happen? How could everybody just be on the same page against you? It's the perfect freaking storm. If you've never been accused of something, good for you. But as long as you have breath in your body and you're still alive, there's still time for it to happen. So for this woman, not even that, this being to launch these things against me and then have the professor that co-signed on it because of her disdain for women of color, because there were several women of color, and there was, and I later found out while I was doing this SAC referral stuff, a gay white male that went through the same thing. So you guys are probably like, well, how could she be racist? Oh, if y'all knew the LGBTQ community and the infighting that happens within that community, you would know why a lesbian female might have some bias towards a gay male. Take a look. Because there's a lot of biases within that community that people don't talk about. There's transphobia within that community. There's racial discriminatory things that happen in the LGBTQ community that people just overshadow and don't want to talk about. Why? Because, oh, we have to show like we're so united, like we love everybody, but really it's no different than any other group of people. We'll even look at Black people, colorism. You know what I'm saying? Like infighting happens in every group, even if you belong to a marginalized group. So he told me that he had issues with her, and actually he had an attorney that I got in contact with because he was trying to sue her and the school because he ended up actually getting kicked out of the school because of her. And because of the lies that his internship supervisor had said on him. If you guys don't think that interns get treated like shit, and sometimes it might be in your face and sometimes it's not. Like sometimes you don't even know. Okay, so the saga of like you think internships and you think like, oh, it's a learning experience. Like I feared doing internships, which means I never wanted to do them in the first place. And half of the time when I was in my undergrad and people were like, oh, if you really want to get into the advertising and marketing, because that's what my trajectory was then, that you have to do internships. And I was like, girl, it's not working for free. Like I got bills, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, I'll never do an internship because they treat people like garbage. Like my mom used to be a clinical coordinator for a huge medical center, and I'm talking about a huge one. I'm not going to name it, but it's massive. And she used to have to get contracts rewritten because students were getting wrongfully kicked out of their internship because the site supervisors would lie on them and be like, oh, we just don't think they're a good fit anymore. Like it's basically a job, and it's like retail. We'll put it like that. You know, if you've ever worked retail, it's very catty, and like if one person doesn't like you and she's the popular person, then everybody's going to turn against you. That's essentially what internships are. Like, you know, if you had a great experience, great. I thought I was having a great experience until shit hit the fan. But, you know, I digressed. But the point of the matter is that this professor and this site supervisor, their whole shits, kicks, and jollies in the world is to power trip through their closeted bigotry and racism. Okay, so when you look at it from that perspective, if you are a person that belongs to a marginalized community, because if you're not, like, please don't even comment, like, because you really are not going to even have anything of value to say because you don't directly experience it. Like, that's just the truth. And, you know, just being a woman is not, it's just, not the same as having multiple groups that you belong to all within one being. Okay. And so when it came to the SAC referral, I had to do a hearing. I had to do several hearings, and I had to defend myself. And what it came down to is that the SAC committee actually was having a hard time understanding why I was even there. They're like, okay, well, have you ever had any issues? Now, mind you, this is on a conference video thing where I'm the only person on camera and everybody else is blacked out because they're freaking weak. Who does that? Like, if you ever felt so alone, like if you never felt alone, you was going to feel alone fighting those battles. Like if I didn't have this other professor that was helping me, that was in the SAC referral, not like beside me, but on the conference call too, like I don't even know how I would have gotten through any of this. And so, they kept asking questions. Well, like, did your site supervisor ever supply a negative review prior to this last review that you're saying that this site supervisor told you she was told to change by your university professor to show a more negative light? And I said, no. I said, I've attached all the artifacts that indicate that every review I've ever had from the school have always been glowing, and it's always shown a great progression in my understanding of not only the profession, but understanding of myself and how me as a person, how I impact my clients, because you first have to know yourself and help yourself before you can help somebody else. So I was like, no, I've never ever had that issue. And so my mentor professor, she later became my advisor during this, but she kept speaking up and she's like, Camille's never had any issue. Like, I don't understand why, if faculty in the department had an issue or questions about Camille's behavior or Camille's work or anything like that, why was that never brought to the student before we got to this point of trying to kick her out of the school? Like, yeah, please. I want to know that answer too. And so the committee was like, okay, department, because there was one representative from the department, and they were like, okay, department, why don't we have any artifacts from you guys? Because they had to supply theirs too. Why don't we have any artifacts from you guys that you even talked to the student? Because the way we're hearing it is she was unaware that any of this was even going on the last week of her internship, because they try to claim that from November to December, it was like ever since I found out that I wasn't going to be able to stay at an internship that I was getting paid at, not getting paid at, that I just been going downhill in my professional skills and my ability to show empathy, and just everything was just going to shit like so quick, because they basically pegged it as like, how dare you ask us a question? Now, if y'all watched one of the first two videos from me talking about this, you will realize that I started out saying that the issue was that I questioned them. I questioned white people. That's what it is. I questioned them about why it is that throughout my whole experience with the school and calling the Florida board, going on the Florida board website, that everybody's interpretation up until November, when I asked that fateful question on how to extend my course so that I can get all my hours of 1,500 that I thought I was going to, or no, 1,000 hours, sorry, that I thought I was going to need, that it just snowballed into this. See, this is what happens when you advocate for yourself. Like, when you advocate for yourself, you have to be willing to understand that that's not always going to come out in your favor. And so basically the SAC committee in a way saw through their shit, because I had so many freaking receipts that discredited every lie, that then they sent me a determination like that I wasn't getting kicked out. Yay. I'd be like, yes, thank goodness. I know you're like, finally we get to this. But then they thought I was going to write a paper. No, 8 separate papers? Oh God, it was like so many papers. And like, it was like, had to be on certain questions like, why do you feel like you were not professional at your internship site? What? Like, the questions I'm trying to tell you, because I know they got drift that I'm going to be suing their asses. So the questions were very much like trying to be worded to basically perjure myself and make it seem like I really just made up all the receipts that I have that are literally emails and papers and text messages and stuff like that, that clearly goes 1,000% against everything they launched against me. It was like, what do you think the ethical reason is behind appropriate termination of clients and not waiting until the last week of leaving your internship site? What do you think, using the ACA codes, what do you think that, you could apply in the future? First of all, I was told that I had a week left at my internship because the Florida board had finally responded back. That was somebody that was not in their call center, that was higher up, that actually did the applications. Now, mind you, this whole time, even the school had emailed me, the Confedero had emailed me and said they were still waiting for the Florida board to confirm with them one way or another on how many hours I actually needed, that I didn't get that email until freaking the first week of December. So how are you going to tell me that I didn't give appropriate time to allow my clients to term out? Meanwhile, I'm emotional too, because I wasn't trying to drop my caseload. Like, so many of my clients I didn't even get to say goodbye to because of this. So they were like, what do you think that you should do instead of just like leaving clients? Like, basically the question was like so wordy and bullshit. And I'm like, okay, so I only term the clients when I was told to term the clients by the site supervisor. I wouldn't even known how to term clients. Like, I've never worked in this field. I've never termed a client out while I was actually working at my site. So I would have no knowledge of what that process looks like, how long you have to do the process with your clients, like a slow progression, so that they're used to the idea that they're not going to be with you, even for the clients that I was seeing every other week and once a week. And I never got that opportunity to allow my clients to even have that closure, and I didn't get the closure. So why would I write a paper saying that I just terminated working at this facility, which I never did, and that I just basically got my crap and left? I'm not writing a paper like that. I'm not going to write a paper that says that I did any of that. And it was like, and what do you think you should do to make sure that you're always professional? I've never had anybody say that I wasn't professional until these two buffoons. Are you kidding me? I was like, where was their proof? Like, I'm not, like, that's the whole thing. They had zero proof for their stuff. It was all hearsay. It was all hearsay. So I was like, I had told my professor that was helping me through this whole process, I'm like, I'm not writing any of these papers. I'm not going to sit here and write papers that are basically going against the very arguments that I had in these SAC referral committee meetings, saying that I did all of this stuff. Why would I sit here and then basically refute everything I said and then write a paper and agree with the department? Like, every freaking question was a paper that was like, well, you know, how do you think you could have handled it better with the student in your classroom that was obviously upset and that you didn't show empathy for? Girl, where are your receipts? That never happened. I literally told this chick, I was like, you know, I understand that you're emotional and it just seems like every time we have supervision, it's very negative. And I was like, maybe we can just focus on some of the positive things. I said, because it seems to me like that would bring you a lot more joy than sitting here talking about something so negative, and that you should be happy of where you're at in this industry. Like, girl, we're like at that point about to graduate and you're concerned that the school that you went to, Argosy, shut down. Okay, but another school took you in. So why would I write a paper claiming that I victimized somebody by basically telling them, listen, this is therapy. This is going to help you. This is DBT. Like, let's stop looking at the patterns of toxic thought and let's start looking at positivity, because guess what? When your mind is toxic, then your actions are toxic. How in the world, why would I write a paper saying that I was not being empathetic to somebody? Why? I literally, in the beginning of what I said to her, addressed her emotions and validated her emotions by saying, I understand how you could feel this way given X, Y, Z and all these circumstances. And then I said, however, it would be great if maybe you took some time to kind of self-reflect and look at some of the positives that came out of that. How in the world is that being unprofessional, not somebody that cares about somebody's feelings? Like, no. And so the professor that was, you know, helping me with the SAC referral, she was like, no, she's like, you're not writing this. You're not doing it. Like, it's just not happening. So basically what happened is they got a new, I don't know if he was a clinical director or what, I forget what he was, but basically like he was like, we're going to go through it. We're going to figure out what you're going to do and not do, because at the end of the day, it's the department's final decision on what I needed to do in order to graduate. And so my final hours still needed to be signed by this professor, and she kept refusing to sign them. She had lied and said I had went back and like changed my hours. And I was like, no, I didn't. We had we had a week left of the class, and everybody was going in and adding their hours in that they hadn't added for the past 2 weeks, because it's always like 2 weeks in arrears that you have to do your hours in, turn them in. I'm like, I literally did the same thing that every other student is doing to make sure they turn in all their hours. But she had flipped it and made it seem like I was just creating hours. And I was like, you guys could go in. I was like, I can put in an IT ticket for this company that we house our hours in that can show where I added hours, which would go with the hours that I actually worked at the site. Like, I was like, this is insane. And so they were like, yeah, she's refusing to sign it. I said, so she's being insubordinate because last time I checked, you work for us as the students, and my course fees went to the school, which paid her paycheck, and the school and the SAC committee didn't say I didn't earn the hours. They were basically like, there's no proof stating that she made up her hours or anything. Like, you know, we can't really address that because like there's nothing indicating from the site, which the site supervisor had texted me in December and was like, you earned all your hours, Camille. Like, I'm so sorry this is happening to you, which I submitted to the school because I was like, if I didn't earn these hours, number one, this site supervisor wouldn't have signed off on every single one of my hours logs, even including my last hours logs. That's the one that's titled final all hours, and that's for all your internship 2 hours. She wouldn't have ever signed off on that, and she damn sure wouldn't have texted me and said, oh, you earned all your hours, Camille. Like, I'm so sorry your school's doing this. Boom. That's exactly what I sent to the SAC committee, and that's why they couldn't take action. Because this professor lied and said that I was just making up hours. Meanwhile, my site supervisor, even with her bullshit, had went through all my hours while this was going on and confirmed all of my hours. But yet they still wanted to think I was going to write these papers indicating that I had did something wrong. No. So the guy that came into the school that took over, like, I think the clinical director's position or somebody's position, I can't even remember right now, and I don't even care. They ended up saying that they were going to have the current, which isn't, she's not there anymore, the current director of the program sign off on all my hours, and your girl was done. She was done. She was done. She was done. Like, I was able to graduate, obviously with COVID, that didn't happen, but I was able to graduate and get the hell out of Dodge because that was the most stressful time in my life. And I know I was going to go into the details, and I did pretty much in my other videos, like pulling the receipts and stuff, but it's so time consuming and so exhausting to do these videos. Like, I just needed to summarize it and just get it off my chest completely in these videos. So there will be other videos that will be talking about school, but it'll be a different perspective of, or a different angle of what happened while I was interning and schooling and everything like that. But there was no reason that this supervisor at the school, this professor, didn't want to send my hours outside of the guy that took over the clinical spot. He's like, yeah, she just said at this point she just doesn't feel comfortable. So you put me through hell for 6.5 months of me having to go through hearing to emails to conferences to everything. And at the end of the day, it's found that she lied and that she's still able to continue her bullshit to not sign my hours. Like, her not signing the hours before the senior director, well, the director of the program stepped in to sign off because she was a part of the problem too, but we're not getting into that. That still would have created me not being able to graduate. Even with it being proven that I didn't have to write those bullshit papers, even with it being proven that all their things that they came against me with were shown to be lies, nobody was harmed in this but me. And she still gets to sit back, have her job, and she gets to say, I just don't feel comfortable signing it anymore. No. Really? That is what happens. That is what happens in corporate America. That's what happens in the education system. These closet, racist, bigoted people get to throw launches and grenades and then say, I just don't feel comfortable. Like, what? Who cares about your comfort? I can't, y'all. So basically, I am definitely taking legal action against my school. Yeah, because some of you guys might be like, oh, well, you graduated. That's sufficient enough. I literally could not graduate for 6.5 months because of this and the wear and tear and stress that it took on my body. Like, I definitely have PTSD from this. And unless you've walked in my shoes or you've had an experience that's even close to this, like, you're never going to understand how stressful this is. I have not been able to apply for jobs in this field or anything because it's a twofold. One, I didn't even get my degrees or anything on time. And two, I don't know if I really even want to work in this field. Maybe I'll do something with mental health in some capacity, but right now, as it stands as of today, I really just need to do some soul searching because these individuals, they're part of the problem. And yes, this can happen in any company. no matter what field, but I think it just hit me a lot harder because of the field that it is, that I just didn't expect it to happen, clearly. Yeah, I'm still even now reflecting, and I just can't even believe that based on 2+ people, because there were other players that I didn't really go into detail with, but that this happened to me. It is so stressful. So if any of you guys have ever had complaints that you've lodged against your professors and have had retaliations, leave a comment below. Like, if you guys have questions about like what is the process to launch complaints, if you feel like there's discrimination that's occurring, definitely comment below. I'll try and help whoever I can, as best as I can. But I just was never prepared for this, never. And I mean, there were days where I couldn't even get out of bed because I was just depleted of energy. I felt like the last year, all the way until April, basically, of this year, 2020, and actually August too, that I didn't feel like I knew which way my life was going. How could my life was in limbo because of this racist, bigoted bullshit. And it's like your power is taken, but yet I paid 6 figures to have my power taken. Like, I'm still tripping. Like, am I dumb? It's like going to college legit is like paying to be tortured. I wish they would advertise like that. Yeah, because I don't know if I would have taken these routes. But yeah, that's really the gist of it. I know that there's gonna be questions, and there's a lot of back and forth that I didn't go into with the school and myself, that made this go on for months and months and months. And how, you know, the SAC referral committees, my interactions with them during the meetings, you know, it was definitely eye-opening. And when I had launched a complaint against this professor with the school, of course it was to a person that was not of color. So of course they saw nothing wrong in what she did. And I'm like, and even the professor that has been helping me, who is a professor of color, she was like, not surprised, Camille. She's like, I've had several students that have tried to complain on this professor and a couple other professors for very similar things happening to them. And this individual never finds fault in anything they do. She said the one thing is that she's like, you are a fighter. She's like a huge fighter. She's like, it's unfortunate that you've gone through this. And she definitely was the person that I leaned on a lot during this process. So, you know, I'm very happy that I had at least a support system, which is vital. And that she told me I was the only student that has gone through this that had not been kicked out. Yep. Yeah. So let that sink in. That's how much I had to fight. And I mean, like, I felt like I was fighting with very little air in my body. Like, there were days where I felt like I couldn't even breathe because my anxiety was so high. So anyways, guys, that's kind of going to be just my last video on the saga with my school as far as it's concerned with them trying to kick me out. I will be making future videos. There's some videos that are going to come up that are based around taking the CPCE, which is the comp test to make sure that you can graduate. I'll definitely be talking about some of my experiences in my internship prior to me having any knowledge of this going on. That will really have to do with giving you guys some insight on working with specific type of clients and people that are diagnosed with, you know, kind of diagnosis that you really don't get too much knowledge on unless you're going through the DSM-5. So anyways, I appreciate for all my subscribers and my new ones, and I'll see you guys in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share the video. Let me know what you think, and I will see you again. Bye.